Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk Live joining us on the program. Mike, let me start with Deshaun Watson. I said from the outset I wasn't getting into the salacious details with Deshaun Watson. I was trying to look at it from a football perspective of when he'll play, if he'll play, where he'll play. And but, I read something that you wrote yesterday, and you were kind of looking at both of these lawyers with what they're saying and how they're framing certain things here. And I thought it would be, really beneficial to the audience to at least understand where we are right now and where you think we're going to be headed with Deshaun Watson.
Well, Dan, two courts in a situation like this, the court of law and the court of public opinion, and a lot has been playing out in the court of public opinion. The only thing that's played out in a court of law so far, 19 lawsuits filed. And the way that it works, the civil complaint gets filed. Once service is performed, and in this case, Rusty Hardin, the lawyer for Deshaun Watson, accepting actual process, that starts the clock on a response. You can file an answer to the allegations, and there will be 19 of them in this case. You can file a motion in response to the complaint. I won't be surprised if there isn't some type of an effort by Rusty Hardin to challenge all of these complaints based upon the fact that they've been filed under a pseudonym. That has been one of the complaints we've seen publicly from Rusty Hardin. And I'm not commenting on the accuracy of any of the allegations here. I'm talking about the legal mechanics. He could file a motion to dismiss, a motion for a more definite statement, something aimed at finding out who the individuals are who are making these claims, because he's complained about that tactic so many times in his public statements. So there could be a motion to dismiss on that basis. At some point, though, the battle is officially joined. The court sets a trial date, and it all moves forward with the discovery process, deposition testimony, people telling their versions under oath, documents being obtained, text messages, etc. Typically takes 18 months to 2 years in most jurisdictions for it to resolve. So barring a settlement, and I've advocated publicly, repeatedly, the best thing for Deshaun Watson, have his reckoning, make this right, satisfy whatever concerns these individuals have, and move on. Otherwise, it's going to hover over him, the Texans, in the league for 2 years, Dan.
Are the police involved?
Well, the criminal courts are not yet involved, and this is where it gets a little confusing. There was a social media post last night from Tony Busby, who represents all 19 of the plaintiffs, suggesting that he didn't go through with his vow to submit evidence to the Houston Police Department because he's got concerns that he ran for mayor and there may be some. It's the height of cynicism to suggest that there would be 19 individuals, 19, who have concerns that the law was violated and that those concerns would not properly be processed and handled by the Houston police because somebody doesn't like Tony Busby. And if that's the case, if there's any truth to that, then these 19 women should be represented by someone else if the lawyer is going to be an impediment to them getting justice in criminal court. Now, Dan, I'll say this. As it stands now, the very high bar of proof beyond a reasonable doubt that applies in criminal cases, I think it's difficult to satisfy that based upon the allegations we've seen and the evidence that seems to be out there, which comes down to one person's word against another's. But if you go forward with the civil cases, Deshaun Watson has a hell of a decision to make. If there's a possibility of prosecution and you get put under oath in the civil case, what are you going to do? You're going to invoke your right against self-incrimination under the Fifth Amendment? You're basically forfeiting the civil case if you do that. But if you talk and you get twisted in knots by an aggressive lawyer, you may give a prosecutor a roadmap for trying to put you behind bars. That's another reason why I say the best thing for him to do, find a way to get these cases resolved to the satisfaction of the individuals. Now, I'm not saying make it go away. I'm saying deal with it. Deal with it, resolve it. Otherwise, it can lead to all sorts of problems down the road.
If it's September, given what Deshaun Watson is going through right now, is Deshaun Watson in uniform in September?
Let me preface this by saying, Dan, that under the policies that the NFL has available to it, it can do whatever it wants, and precedent doesn't really matter. Every case is treated individually, and it's all driven by PR, personal conduct policy, commissioner exempt list. It's all about how does it make the NFL look. Most employers, vast majority, don't care what you do away from work. Think about that. All this conduct is away from the workplace. But the NFL and the NFL Players Association have agreed that these things that happen away from work can affect the way the players are viewed, the teams are viewed, the league is viewed, so discipline is available. Commissioner's exempt list, paid leave. I firmly believe that if these cases are still hovering when September rolls around, haven't been resolved moving forward in the civil justice system, that the league will strongly consider putting Deshaun Watson on paid leave. And that would be the ultimate irony here. He's wanted out of Houston so badly. That may be his only financial lifeline this year, getting $10 million plus to not play while on paid leave. And that $10 million is going to come in handy if he's defending what is now, Dan, according to the Houston Chronicle, 21 assault lawsuits that have been filed against him, and who knows how many more there will be.
Commissioner said we're going to have fans in the stands to start the season. Is that kind of across all platforms here, all teams, all states, that they're going to be able to have capacity?
I think it's wishful thinking in some states. Obviously, Texas, Florida, you're going to have full stadiums no matter what the status of the pandemic is. That's not a political comment. That's just a fact. Other states, they may be a little more hesitant. I think what the commissioner may be trying to do here, Dan, is speak it into existence in some of these states that may be less inclined to say full attendance is permitted. We got a long way to go before we get to September. We got a lot of progress we still need to make when it comes to the pandemic. Recently, the news hasn't been good. It fluctuates as more people get vaccinated, but 5 months is a lifetime as far as the pandemic is concerned. There's reason for optimism, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done. And specifically, you got to convince California, New York, Massachusetts, other state and local governments that it's okay not just to have some fans present, but to have a full capacity.
Your biggest concern with the 17-game schedule is?
I don't know that I have a concern per se, because the bottom line is the players voted for it. The league was determined to get it. They were going to get it. My biggest expectation is it's a stopover to 18. And it's just a matter of when the league makes the push for 18. Will it be when this current CBA expires? Will it be before that? One of the things about the new TV deals, Dan, the league has the ability to pull the plug on all of them 7 years in, a one-time out. I fully expect the league to take that out, and that's a spot where you can say, we have another weekend of games for you. We want more money for that. The gambling side of it has continued to grow. We think the rights are more valuable, and I think that proliferation of gambling, it's about 20 states now, 22 states. It's going to get to 30, 35, 40. I think the hard ceiling is 44 because there's only 44 states now that have lotteries. But once we get more and more states, more and more money, more and more revenue, more and more football, I think 18 is inevitable. They still want 18. They just decided that 17 is the easier sell for now.
Everybody get paid as far as the players go? Do you get an extra check with an extra game?
I think they hashed that all out, and it was so long ago I have to go back and refresh my memory. They came up with a deal where you get an extra check at the rate you were supposed to make, although there may be a cap on that for some players. That would be unfair. I think the bottom line is you should get one more check at the same rate that you were already due to make for playing that extra game. And I think anything less than that would be patently unfair.
Talking to Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live co-host. This whole these pro days, and I know you don't do deep dives into these kind of things, but we're seeing this play out where San Francisco goes up, and we assume they're taking Mac Jones, and then Mac Jones maybe didn't perform as well as he should have yesterday, and then Justin Fields plays or performs really well here. Is any of this going to matter when we get to the draft in less than a month?
I don't think it ultimately does. Now, the difference between this year and other years, Dan, there's no opportunity for the private workout where any concerns that a team may have could be alleviated. I remember in 2014, Teddy Bridgewater did his pro day workout without his gloves, and it was a disaster. Well, then the Vikings did a private workout with him, and he put the gloves on, and they fell in love with him. And so that was that. Problem solved. We're seeing guys do multiple pro day workouts this year, so coaches can come and watch what they do, like Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch yesterday in Tuscaloosa. And I don't read a whole lot into anything that happens. Sims and I were talking about it earlier today. On the overthrow that drew the flashback by Kyle Shanahan to Jimmy Garoppolo missing Emmanuel Sanders in Super Bowl 54, I mean, we don't know if the guy ran the route too slow, if he pulled up at the end, if he wasn't going to lay out and risk injuring himself trying to catch that ball. It wasn't a horrible like missed him by 20 yards overthrow. And if anything, you'd rather overthrow than underthrow. And if he underthrows it, the guy slows down and catches it. You say, hey, he completed a pass. In a game, you throw that ball, it's possibly going to be picked off by the safety.
Yeah, I know. We're told, reminded, don't read too much into these pro days. And then all of a sudden you start to see some of the New York media saying, should the Jets reconsider Zach Wilson at number 2 and maybe Justin Fields? Just based off him.
Yeah, but that Fields throw, he's running right to left, and he's throwing the ball in the direction he's running, and he puts his entire body into that throw. The Zach Wilson throw that got everyone fired up, he's going right to left, and he sends it back the other way with a flick of the wrist. That's why Sims has Wilson at number 1 on his board of quarterbacks, because he sees Mahomes and Rodgers in the things Wilson can do. Effortless flick of the wrist 60 yards down the field.
Yeah, it's called Mahomesian. I've coined the phrase Mahomesian throws.
I like that.
Okay.
I'll use that.
You can take it. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Thank you.
I'm John
I don't
Stockton.
have to send you something every time I say it?
No. But, I just like John Stockton. I'll throw it to you. You can be Karl Malone.
But there's going to be a whole generation of kids, seriously, who have watched Patrick Mahomes. I mean, what Michael Jordan did to basketball, Patrick Mahomes is going to do the quarterback position. There's going to be, 5, 10, 15 years from now, more and more guys who come into the NFL playing like Mahomes, and already here comes a guy, Zach Wilson, who can play like Mahomes. It's going to revolutionize the game when there are enough of those guys playing quarterback that's the kind of stuff we see. Any body position, any arm angle, just these incredible throws where the ball just gets rifled down the field with a flick of the wrist. It's awesome. It's great for the future of the game.
Well, Mahomes is doing for quarterbacks what Steph Curry is doing for shooters. And Steph Curry, to me, has had the biggest impact on the NBA in a long time. Even bigger from the standpoint than Jordan, from that everybody thinks they can do what Steph Curry does. Nobody thought they could do what Jordan did. With Mahomes, these quarterbacks all think that they can do what Mahomes does, or they can at least try to do that. That what I think is the impact that these two are going to have on their respective sports.
That's right, because a certain percentage of the quarterbacks who try will realize they can do it. They'll practice it. They'll work on it. And then the next thing you know, you got another Patrick Mahomes and another Patrick Mahomes. And it bodes very well for the future of the sport. And Dan, 5 years ago, I would have said there's no way in hell they're going to expand the NFL because there aren't enough quarterbacks. I think we're getting to the point where there's enough quarterbacks. And I'm telling you, once they get to 18 games, the next way you increase inventory for gambling purposes is to increase teams. Just wait for it. It's coming. 34, 36. They're going to start talking about it. And once they start talking about it, they've got a plan in place to do it.
Okay, but where are we expanding to?
Well, I think that the overseas markets need to be taken seriously. 2 teams in London, maybe elsewhere. Peter King suggested last night a full division of 4 teams that would be international. And there's always a market or two. In the U.S., you could drop a team in San Diego. You could drop a team in St. Louis, although St. Louis currently suing the NFL for a lot of money. They'd have to mend those fences first. And I've said for years the prospect of a second team in Chicago, and they got 2 baseball teams, right? Why couldn't you put a second NFL team in Chicago? And so I just think that the push to have more football content that's televised with in-game betting, play-by-play betting, more, they'll find places to put teams.
Yeah, they got to get one good team in Chicago, and then I think that you can expand that, Mike.
So it would be the expansion team.
Yeah.
They haven't had 2 good teams in New York for a decade. Well, look at it. The Jets haven't done anything, and the Giants, since they won the Super Bowl 10 years ago, have been to the playoffs one time. So
we suggested they merge. We thought that maybe if they merged, they might be a playoff team.
But you know what? Hey, Zach, if they don't screw up this Zach Wilson thing, the Jets may finally have their Joe Namath all these years later.
Thank you, Mike, as always.
Thanks, Dan. Sorry about the technical issues, buddy.
That's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live.